Elmer sat like a drowned rat in the back of the covered cart, the world outside a neon wasteland of rain, moonlight, and shadows. The pillowcase over his face completely blocked his vision and stank of soot and oil. Although darkness surrounded his senses, the rough material failed to mute the bustling nightlife of the rolling metropolis beneath the main keep. Winding through its cobbled streets, the clop of monotonous hooves slowly replaced the mayhem, and the guttural wheeze of the beasts that pulled him forth echoed through the night. Elmer had read about these hell beasts in old stories, believing them to be myth. A mixture of bison and horse, they were swollen with old radiation, their hides plated with bone, and breath steaming like furnaces. They were dangerous, highly aggressive, and loyal to the core. Elmer considered the power they held within and shuddered at the thought of whoever they called master. Elmer had been skirting the edge of paranoia, and the past 3 months had carved him hollow. The guild had sent him to stalk what he thought was an ordinary man. Connell was his name, a carpenter by trade, and nobody of great importance. Yet, as Elmer peeled back the curtain, the plot began to thicken, and he soon realized Connell possessed a dark secret, and in the end it would claim his brother's life. Elmer had been consumed by the hunt, obsessing for months, spiraling out of control, and no longer able to identify the truth embedded within the web of lies. The deeper he dug, the more the world stuttered, and the less his reality remained intact. Accounts hid beneath glyphs, codes disguised themselves as prayer scripts, clues in ledgers led to maps of dead cities. Each new lead, nothing but a dead end. He began to suspect a setup, a blade sharpened beneath his own table, and a concealed traitor within his own house. The latest message had come in the dead of night. A voice like gravel, unplaceable, and shielded by an encrypted enchantment. The words were simple and plain. Come alone. The truth will be paid. No name, no clues, no guarantee. Elmer lunged willingly at the bait with open arms, asking no questions, and willing to ignore all risks. How could he not? This was his chance for more than just answers. This was his chance for revenge. Yet, as he now waits with bated breath and a heavy anticipation, he wonders if climbing into this cart would be his final misstep. Elmer wouldn't have to wait long to know the answer, as the cart finally began to slow, and muffled voices echoed. The creature's hooves sloshed into standing water, tails flicking mud like whips, and their heavy breath fogging in the rain. The cloaked driver's silhouette shifted as they plopped down into the sloppy ground and disappeared out of sight for a moment. Elmer did his best to track the sound of their movements, but struggled as everything melded into a muffled, shadowy mess. The wet footsteps suddenly began to grow in volume and echoed to a loud thud as they circled to the back of the cart. Elmer could feel their presence just beyond the opening, and he knew the time had come. They had reached their destination, and whatever happened next, there was no going back. Elmer felt firm hands seize his ankles and yank harshly, sliding him along the floor of the cart and out into the cold rain. He froze for a moment, senses misaligned, bearings smashed to pieces, and at the complete mercy of his unknown ally. Elmer sensed a lumbering body standing directly before him, and his breath lodged in his throat. Before he could react, he felt stubby fingers clasp at the cloth and rip it from his head. A flash of bright light stabbed at his eyes, and Elmer recoiled at the illuminations. Crude lanterns strung on spines of ruined buildings flickered between the storm clouds and cast a deep red glow around the broken houses. Adjusting his eyes, Elmer found himself standing alone before a dark figure, their identity shielded by the shadows just beyond the light. Waiting in silence, his fingers twitched as his heartbeat rose to a thud. Adrenaline pulsed around his chest, and all he could do was bask in the unbearable pressure of the midnight meeting, and nothing could have prepared him for who stepped forth. Elmer's fingers dug into his palms until nails drew blood. Thoughts came in shards, memories of pain, accusations filled with anger, and finally, a deep, sickly hunger burning a hole in his chest. The sound of a cackle rolled out from the shadows, and a deep-rooted shiver pulsed around his limbs. The laugh folded into threads within Elmer's mind and slammed at the edges of his brain. He knew this laugh, knew the fear it invoked, and knew he had been lured, hook, line, and sinker. As Connell's ghastly presence phased into sight, he slowly removed his hood to reveal his sunken eyes, scarred cheeks, and sickly patchwork skin. The mere sight of Connell's rotting persona was enough to churn a violent rage within Elmer's soul, and for a moment he contemplated ending him right here and now. Twitching to quench his concealed blade's thirst, hesitation overruled, and the desire to know the truth of his brother's death shifted his judgment. "Good to see you, old friend. I see your lust for the truth still remains." Connell chuckled sarcastically. Elmer hung on every syllable, decoding each sound and wallowing in deep suspicion. The two stood in silence amongst the rain, and the pressure began rising to an unbearable peak. The beasts that had carried Elmer stamped in response, inhaling the tension, snorting in an awkward impatience as they sensed the knife-edge moment. Elmer thought of his brother's warning the day he died, and the choice uncoiled in his chest. Betray his guild brothers, or extinguish his final chance to know the truth. Toying with each, Elmer finally stepped forward, his right hand tracing the silver-infused blade, and gripped the handle tightly. "Tell me everything, Connell, before I send you back to hell."